coffee beans! How's it brewing? A couple weeks ago, Nerdy Crafter and her sister Sika made some really cool pyramid resin pieces, and I was really inspired to give that a try. On top of that, I also just got a brand new computer that one of my friends completely custom built for me, specifically for video editing. Now, I know you're probably thinking, like, what does a resin pyramid have to do with a brand new computer? But I was so thankful that he built this for me, so I decided to make him a resin pyramid. Now, he is a big computer guy. He has his own custom computer, and he's a big gamer, so I decided to make this resin piece themed after his gamer tag, which is Stone Ruby. So I found this huge pyramid silicone mold on Amazon from Let's Resin, and they're a really well-known resin brand, so I knew I could trust the quality of their silicone molds. What's really neat is this silicone pyramid fits inside this big plastic cube that has the shape of a pyramid on the inside, so that way it stays stabilized while it's curing. I've seen other ones where it's a pyramid shape with just a square base, and I've heard that those can bow out or tip over, and this is super stable. The only thing that is kind of tricky about it is actually getting the silicone into this cube base, because the silicone sides just want to keep sticking to the plastic, so it did take a little bit of wiggling to get it in there. One of the common reviews I saw was that upon demolding, the silicone kept ripping for a lot of people, and I think the problem was the type of resin they were using. So I am going to use, shock and surprise, the Sophie and Toffee 3-in-1 resin, because this is meant to be deep pour resin, and it cures a lot slower and at a little bit of a lower temperature than some of the other resins, especially the usual resin that I use, Envirotex Light. Like, that one cures really hot, and it only cures in maybe like 6 to 12 hours. And that would for sure probably fuse to the silicone with a deep pour like that, because it would get really hot from the reaction. So I'm using 3-in-1 today, and I'm going to be taking even more precautions and pouring it in layers, not one big deep pour at once. So because his name is Stone Ruby, the first thing I'm going to do is make a ruby, and I'm going to use this silicone mold, which is also from Let's Resin. So to get the really nice ruby color, I started off with some red in my UV resin, but it was a little bit too red. So then I added the tiniest bit of purple, and then of course that made it way too dark. So then I added some more red, and I think it came out like a perfect dark kind of ruby color. Then I cured that under my UV light for a good long while. I demolded it and cured it again just to make sure that everything was not sticky, was completely hard, before I put it in my regular epoxy resin. I put on my gloves. Make sure you always wear gloves when working with resin, and make sure you also wear a mask with a proper ventilation cartridge. I will put a link for everything that I use down below so you can stay extra safe while you work with resin too. The main reason I usually stay away from 3-to-1 resin is I just cannot do the math. I am not a math person, and it confuses me. I just see like numbers flying around, and I don't know what I'm trying to do, and is it weight, is it volume? I get confused. But finally, my husband was able to kind of break it down for me in a way I could understand. I don't know. For the pyramid, for just the point of it, I wasn't sure how much resin I needed, so I figured I would just do way more than necessary just in case, because I can always use extra resin in another project. So what I did after I did my math, I poured in 60 milliliters of the resin and 20 milliliters of the hardener, because that's 80 milliliters altogether, and I stirred that for about 3 to 5 minutes. Then, before adding my ruby, I poured in a little bit of the resin at the very point of the pyramid, and I got a toothpick and made sure to poke out any of the air bubbles, because a big air bubble definitely settled right at that point, and I wanted to make sure that that went away. So I poked it with a toothpick. Then, to center the ruby, I taped together some popsicle sticks, tied on some thread, and then I stuck the thread to the point of the ruby with some sticky tack. And you want to make sure that when you make these pyramids, you do everything upside down. So I hung the ruby upside down and I centered it where I needed it. And then I poured in the rest of my clear resin, just enough to cover the ruby about halfway up. I didn't want to cover it completely because obviously the sticky tack is on there and I don't want the sticky tack to be in the resin. So I just filled it up so that it covered the ruby about halfway. And then I cured that for about 12 hours. I definitely had leftover resin, so I used that in another project. Once it was cured, I removed the sticky tack, mixed up more resin, and let that cure for another 6 hours. Then I wanted to add letters in kind of a circle shape so it looks like the ruby is hovering over these words, and I wanted to put his gamer tag, which is Stone Ruby. So I used these really pretty glittery stickers, and unfortunately I thought I pushed record, but apparently I didn't. So this is what the final result looks like after I laid all the letters down. And again, because I'm working upside down, I made sure to place the letters upside down and backwards so that when it's flipped the right way, it says Stone Ruby. And I poured some more resin over that and let it cure for another 6 hours. And while that was curing, I wanted to make the stone that would be the stone ruby. And so originally I used some air dry clay that looks like stone inside this really cool silicone mold, but it did not look good. It looked weird. You couldn't tell what it was. So what I did is I mixed up some UV resin with some black glitter so it looked kind of textured like stone, and I put in just a little bit of black and white pigment and I mixed that together. Now, because this silicone mold is not clear, it's solid, that means that the UV light is not going to penetrate all the way through. So what I did is I just painted the edges of the mold with the UV resin and cured it in really thin layers. And then I filled up the center of it with clear UV resin because the light will reach through that. And then I coated the top with another thin layer of the gray mixture. And I also did 2 different molds because I wasn't sure which one would look better, this pointier one or the round one. But once they were all completely cured and hardened and not sticky anymore, I decided that the more pointy one looked better. It kind of looked like a mountain, whereas the round one is pretty, but you can't really tell what it is. It just looks like a gray blob. Then, because this is the very bottom of the mold, I added a whole bunch of epoxy resin, and then I tried initially to balance the stone inside the resin, but it kept falling over. So I ended up using the same technique as the ruby. So I tied some thread around my popsicle sticks, stuck that to the stone with some sticky tack, and I let that cure for a long time. I let that cure for about a day, day and a half. And now that everything is cured and hardened, it is finally time to demold it. I'm so excited. I was really careful while demolding this because I was so scared about ripping the mold, which is what some of those reviews said, but honestly, it came out like a charm. It came out without any problems. I wasn't even remotely worried of the silicone ripping. It was really sturdy. So I definitely recommend this mold. I will put a link down below. I'm not sure if people were using the wrong resin and it cured too hot, or if maybe they got like a knockoff to this one and they reviewed the wrong product. But this one, follow the link. It is awesome. I highly recommend it. I mean, Let's Resin is an awesome company anyway, so I wasn't surprised that it worked as well as it did. But look at this pyramid, guys. It looks so cool. There is a little bit of an air bubble on top of that ruby, which really bums me out, but actually it kind of gives it this look like it's in water rather than just like clear resin, so it looks really neat. So I was disappointed at first, but I actually really like it. And just because of how pyramids work, I get more math, man. This is like geometry. I don't know what the heck, but the resin inside the pyramid kind of causes like a mirrored effect. So from the side, I didn't think you'd be able to read the word stone ruby, but it actually reflects off the other sides and looks like it is like sideways. It looks really cool. And then what I ended up doing is I bought a light base, so it lights up, and I put the pyramid on top of that, and it changes colors, and it looks so neat. It doesn't reflect as much light around the room as I expected it to, especially because the pyramid is clear, but it still makes for a really pretty nightlight. What my friend ended up doing is putting it inside his computer. Like, what the heck? I didn't expect him to do that, but it looks so cool. So, I'm blown away. Now I want to make one for the inside of my computer, which, look at how gorgeous my computer is. It's beautiful, and it runs so fast. I can't even express to you how fast it is. So I'm just so happy I have this. Now I can actually edit videos for you guys so much quicker than I usually do. like 5 times faster, I'm telling you. So I'm just so happy. I'm gonna have to make a pyramid for my computer now because the where he put his looks awesome. My husband really wants me to make him a pyramid, and I have some other ideas for pyramid resin projects. So if you liked this video and you want to see some more projects made with this mold, then let me know in the comments below and give this video a big thumbs up. And if you liked what you saw, then make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. I post every Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Love you a latte.